So now whoa, sorry, that scared me. I'm gonna get started. Um, Hi, I'm Simona Freed, and I'll be speaking on regulation and self-advocacy. This was me as a nest student on the left. I was an elementary schooler. I'm 8 years old in this photo. So during nest, I was just generally very inquisitive and outgoing, but I did struggle with some social stuff, like reciprocating and just general cues, as well as regulation and emotions. And then now I'm a college student at SUNY Purchase. I'm a music major, and I like to spend time with friends and learn more about music and speak to people like I'm speaking to you all right now. And I'm really honored to be here. So, our objectives are to learn how self-advocacy looks in different situations. So, see how like each person does their own self-advocacy experience, and how each person would self-advocate throughout different ages or different situations that they have in academic, social settings. Also, to learn regulation strategies for autistic students, just what I would want and what I have done, such as how caregivers can also support. Like, this isn't to say, hi, I'm going to lecture you all and say that I am a professional. That's not me. That's Ronnie. That's all of your nest coordinators. But I just want to provide a perspective of what I would want as an autistic person, which obviously looks different for everyone. And then lastly, to learn how self-advocacy applies to regulation. That's like kind of the big one, is because you can't have regulation without self-advocacy, and you can have self-advocacy without regulation. Because in order to speak up, your emotions need to be felt and heard. But in order for your emotions to be under control, you need to feel that you can be heard. Okay, so if you could all type in the chat one time when you oh wait, sorry. This is our quote. This is "The world needs all kinds of minds" by Temple Grandin. This is really important to me because in order for us to all thrive and coexist, all kinds of minds need to be able to speak up, which means that all kinds of voices need to be able to self-advocate. And these minds, when we're all regulated, when we're all just coexisting, this is a great way for us to really celebrate everyone. Okay, great. So if you could all type in the chat a time when you struggle to advocate for yourselves, that would be great. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat. I want to give people a minute, but
The interpreter Felice, I'm noticing someone has their hand raised.
yes? Wait, hold on. Where do I see the participants? Because, oh, um, yes, Paulina, please share.
Hi, yes, I'm not having access to the chat. It says chat disabled.
Hmm. Is that anybody else having that? Could you raise your hand if that's for you as well? Oh, okay. Chat is disabled. That is a fun conundrum. Okay. Give me a second. Let me check settings. Otherwise, are you chat seems to be disabled.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yes. Um, Simona, how do you feel about using the Q&A maybe while I try to
Oh,
figure
that works. I'm good with whatever as long as I can see people and what they're saying.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
I'll-
Zoom is app being a little funky right now. Wait, more Q&A. Hold on.
I'm going to try to figure out the chat situation in the meantime, to respond to Simona's prompt of when was a time you struggled to advocate for yourself? If you could type that in the Q&A, and then she'll be able to see those. Elise, do you mind typing something in the chat to see if that works? Awesome. Okay, I think the
Yay!
chat worked. No,
But I'm
just
a panelist, so
Oh,
anybody else try typing in the chat for us?
wait, I did just see
No?
Nellie Castillo's
yeah,
test.
someone
Great.
else just, yeah, Nelly, right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys all so much for your responses. Um, wait, sorry guys, I'm a little nervous. Let's see. Um, this was an okay, awesome. So I'm gonna just okay. M. Thomas, at doctor's office, advocating for yourself can be very difficult, especially when waiting a very long time to be seen. Yeah, that's very real. Um, I definitely can relate to that. Um, and Rachel requesting accommodations and getting a no, that's definitely tough. I've been there. Mrs. Rodriguez being in a room and full of other people and being difficult. It like that would be a difficult situation. I definitely see that. Okay, I'm gonna stick to those right now. Um, so I'm gonna reopen the share. So to everyone who answered so far, do you think, just again type in the chat, do you think that you were regulated in that moment? Like when you were struggling to self-advocate? Just that you're, and if anyone is confused as to what regulation means, do you think that your emotions were under control? Not your emotions, because everyone's allowed to feel things, but it's like that you were very calm, collected, and your most outgoing and controlled, I got this self. Got it. Wow. I'm honestly not surprised to hear that you guys were not regulated because neither am I. I mean, when I like advocate and I can't and I feel that I'm not being successful and that I'm not being heard, I can't regulate that very often. I can't be feeling under control in that I got this attitude that I thought I had. And M. Thomas, you said that emotions can be heightened. That's definitely like a situation that happens. So now I'm going to get into a more depth. So, yeah, in order for someone to properly advocate for themselves, they must be regulated. Like, how are you ever going to talk about and feel that you deserve to be heard if you can't have like your actions in a way where you can properly communicate? But then also, in order for regulation to occur, one needs to believe that they can be heard. They go hand in hand. Important things to practice. So this is just generally like things that we should practice throughout each stage of our lives. In childhood, these are some things that would look like and that I have practiced. Saying no, I mean, that's like really important because I grew up in a Hispanic household where a lot of people, like just boundaries looked very different versus in an American household. Not saying that one is better or worse, just that they looked very different. And suddenly I was in school and people here were a lot more contained in terms of boundaries. And it's just very important to know that you do have the right to say, like, hey, I don't like this. I mean, I was working at a school with very small children. And one thing that I often, it was a bilingual program, and they often said, para, no me gusta, which means stop, I don't like that. And it's very important to practice this if you're on the spectrum, especially because people often like think that they should always just cater to others' needs and being liked, etc. And you also have the right to your own needs. Speaking clearly, because even if sometimes what you don't have to say is no, like you should just say like, hey, I'd actually rather this. So that's why it's like if you have a couple of options, like I remember one time I didn't like an assignment that I had to do in elementary school, and I didn't say like, no, I won't do the assignment. It was more like, hey, could I do this other assignment instead? And then we ended up compromising on an assignment, which leads to compromise, which is the last one, is just learning how to reason with other people. I mean, if I'm on the subway and I want a seat and my friend also wants a seat, and at this point we're very small in age, then we obviously want the seat, both of us. And that's why my mom said, like, okay, how about if you, Simona, get the seat for the first couple of stops, and then the next person gets the seat for the next couple of stops? There we go. High school. Some strategies that I learned in high school included knowing my limits. So beyond just like saying no, also just like understanding like how much outside of my comfort zone am I willing to go. I mean, I remember I was had a situation where I had some friends that wanted me to go to an abandoned building at night with them, and I was like, "Hey guys, I don't want to do this. It's locked and I'm gonna go home if you do that." So setting boundaries is another one like that. I'm gonna go home if you go into this building is a boundary because it's like, I don't want to go into this building. I'm very firm about that. But I often struggled with that when I was younger. I mean, I had a friend who would always complain to me about their boyfriend, and I was just very like not happy with it, and they continue to do that. And I really struggled to tell them, like, hey, it's within your control to break up with him, but I can't really hear this right now because I'm also going through my own life. exploring your comfort zone as well. Like one time I remember I was in school, we had to dissect a sheep brain. That was very gross and uncomfortable for me. But I still did it because the sheep brain was part of an assignment and I knew I would learn from it. But there have been other times when like I just thought like, okay, this is too far out of my comfort zone. And this is something that we all need to practice because like especially if you're on the spectrum, emotions are even more overwhelming and they have been for me. So I just kind of shut down instead of understanding how far out of my comfort zone I can go. Sorry, hold on. I'm trying to get to the next slide, but it's not letting me there. Oh, college and the workplace. So optimizing speech. I know that this sounds kind of confusing, but I'd say it's like just speaking to different people in different situations in a very different way. Like I speak to my friends in a different way to my professors and my parents and my employers. Like to professors and employers, I write an email and I sign it like best regards, Simona Freed. While with my friends, I can be like, hey girl, but like it just looks very different with each person. But just optimizing your speech so that you are heard, just thinking, like, not just thinking before you speak, but thinking about how you're going to speak to feel heard the most. Analyzing your actions. So, like, before I do something, and this is, I can't speak, according to my parents, you do this less and less as you grow up. But personally, like if I'm gonna do something large, such as talk to a professor about something that I really don't appreciate or something like that, I really like think about it thoroughly and I body like double with a couple of people, like or not body double, that's not the best word, but it's more like I shoot off of like I shoot ideas off of people. Like I'll ask my friend, maybe my dad, just be like, "Hey, um what do you think of this email? Does this look okay to you?" And then they'll each tell me like one little edit, and then I'll consider the edits, and then I'll just see before I send them. And that is something that's very important to practice because that's very like it goes hand in hand with optimizing speech. Then also taking accountability because sometimes everyone makes mistakes like a lot and sometimes the person in the wrong in the situation is you. So you need to like understand and recognize after you've analyzed your actions when you are wrong. I mean, recently I was a camp counselor and one of my campers fell because I just didn't really like it's not that I wasn't looking after my campers, it was more just that like my camper was not listening to me and then we just had a bit of an argument. And then the camper fell and I had to take accountability and be like, yeah, my camper was not listening to me, but I might have not communicated with my camper most effectively in this situation or put myself in their shoes. But luckily, no one was injured very seriously, and we were able to move on. Real world examples of this include, Greta Thunberg, my bad. Oh no, wait, there we go. Greta Thunberg speaks clearly and emotionally to advocate for our world and for all of us. Um, Everyone, like, should be able to be heard, and she wanted to be heard no matter what. I mean, she was 15 years old marching in the streets for climate activism when no one was there, and she was really passionate about it. And eventually people started listening because listening takes persistence and advocating takes persistence. So then here are some strategies that you can use to support like your child. I mean, what this is what I would want as a person on the spectrum. Sorry, it's like not really showing up. There we go. Okay. I would want important conversations to happen during calm moments. Like when I was young and I was really worked up, it was very much more useful for my parents to speak to me during, like, the day after something happened, like a huge meltdown or something. Like it was very like overwhelming if they were to speak to me right in the middle of the meltdown. But it was a lot easier if like, hey, what happened yesterday? And then we each just kind of found our each common ground, which is the second one, and we each kind of just realized who did what to cause the meltdown. So it's just like ensure that you're like with me at least, this is different for each person, but we all want to be met with calmness and with like empathy because we have stuff in common. We also, like me at least, I want my behavioral needs or boundaries to be supported by parents. I mean, everyone has the right to boundaries. And if you're a parent, like, I feel, I mean, sometimes as a kid, my boundaries were and weren't respected in different situations with adults. And it was a lot easier for me to be open and be kind when those boundaries were respected. And then also navigating everyone's emotions regardless of the neurotype. You have feelings, I have feelings, Ronnie has feelings, everyone on this Zoom has feelings, and in the world, regardless of whether we're autistic or neurotypical or what. And we each have the right to feel comfortable when we're being spoken to. And that to feel that our emotions are being respected. Everyone deserves to feel heard. This is a photo of me as a kid. Um, and it's just everyone really deserves to understand that their feelings will are valid and will be listened to. Um, I often like really tried to make myself heard in different ways, and eventually I found what worked for me. And this is me sharing some of what worked for me with you guys. Um, and yeah, it's just like everyone has a different situation or strategy that does work for them. I do want like I wanted to leave a lot of time for the Q&A, because I know that a lot of people often have a lot of questions, and I've had my questions not answered at events like this, and sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. But I just really wanted more of an active conversation than like, yes, obviously this is a panel. I did have this thing to share, but if anyone has questions, now would be the time to ask. And yeah.
Simona, would you prefer if the Q&A function is used for questions or the chat?
I'm good with either. I mean, probably Q&A.
Okay, let's try to keep the questions in the Q&A function just to keep it a little bit more streamlined.
Got it. Also, thank you, M. Thomas, for being here as well, and thank you all because, I mean, it's really important for you guys to also have an active role in this. I would not be speaking to anyone if you guys weren't here. I would just be speaking to myself and going a little bit nuts because I would just be speaking and speaking and speaking. Um, Thank you so much, Paulina. How was my transition out of the program? What was it like taking classes that weren't Nest after spending years in it? What was it hard to shift or was it not a big deal? That was from John Kelly. So John, I'm going to answer this live. This was very it was a little bit difficult. It wasn't about the classes as much so. Like, I went to Montessori for middle school, so it was like a lot more interactive and progressive, and like all of my teachers were very like comfortable with speaking to me. Um, and I did have a very high like GPA in middle school. The thing was more so just that like the students, like it was a lot harder to connect, especially because I was in a mixed age classroom and I was among the youngest students for most of that time. So, like, I got there right in like fifth or sixth grade when middle school started. And then that was just really difficult because everyone, like, I had to deal with eighth graders who were neurotypical and knew sarcasm, and I didn't know sarcasm. Then high school was a lot more difficult, mostly just because of like mental health related stuff. It was just like I went to three different high schools, partially because of like commuting. Like my first high school, I just didn't really feel was that connected with who I am as a person. Like I'm very artsy. I'm currently studying songwriting. Well, this was like a very academic, specialized high school, and I was just like, I don't want to be here. The second high school was a lot more like artsy, like my vibe. The thing is, it was just the hours were so long because it was, I went to Sinatra, that was very reputable, but it was like very long hours, and it was also so far from my house. I had to wake up sometimes before 5 in the morning if I had to talk to a professor, or at 5 in the morning if I just wanted to go to school and get there and be in my classroom on the fifth floor by 8 a.m. And it was just really, really draining. But college has been a lot easier. I have awesome friends. I'm in a relationship and everything's great. So yeah, I'm finished with that one. Rachel Fruman, how has my learning process been in learning how to say no when I was younger? Did I struggle saying no? And if so, how did I overcome? Yes, I did struggle a lot to say no. Especially like I've always been kind of a people pleaser. Um, I was very like dependent on people liking me, especially upon finding out about my diagnosis. I found out through a friend, not through my parents, just because of the way things worked out. And this friend was older and he just like kind of told me that I was autistic one day. And it was very overwhelming for me to just find this out all of a sudden. So I did struggle with saying no a lot, and it was just like, especially to teachers, like I did tell my mom one time, she told me that did my homework because I wanted teachers to like me. But I did, and I still kind of, I'd say that is my biggest struggle out of all of the things that I've shared today as a person. Like I'm a pretty good communicator, but sometimes I won't often share everything that's like I'll share what's on my mind, but I won't share what I don't want to do or don't feel comfortable with just because I'm people pleasing. But it is an active process and I have gotten a lot better about it. I did kind of overcome this, especially a lot in college, just because like I have a lot more people that I feel comfortable around. I found like a neurodivergent friend group that they're not all neurodivergent, but just I found a lot more neurodivergent friends. My partner is neurodivergent. So it's a lot easier for me to communicate with these people. And also just like a lot of them are part of the queer community, which I am as well. And it's just a lot easier when it's not all people who you feel like they all belong to a group and you don't quite belong to this group. So that's kind of how I overcame it. And then also, I just kind of practiced speaking to adults. Like I practiced it with my parents, saying no to them as well. And then eventually with my professors, like I don't really say no to professors, but like I have told them, as I said before, like, hey, I really don't appreciate how this worked out. I mean, one professor made a very personal joke about like something that I had experienced when I was younger that I shared with him, and I was like, hey, could you please not do that? And then he sat down and met with me separately and he was like, yeah, completely, I understand. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that at all. I just, you were joking about it, so I also joked about it. Alexis, Hi, regarding regulation and self-advocacy, how is the transition into college, especially by dorming? The transition into college while dorming was actually very smooth. Um, Other than, well, I did have like kind of an iffy roommate situation at first, but I was able to move just because of like a bunch of stuff like that happened, and it was very mutual decision that like we just weren't really vibing because of the random online matcher like that basically does roommate matchmaking. um and the transition into college is just like it's been really awesome, honestly, because I've found my people and I feel that I belong within my major. And my current roommate is great. We agreed to hang out when I get back, and we are friends, so it's like a lot easier to just kind of see some people are gonna like you and you like them, some people you just don't vibe with as well, and that's okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Feel free to type them because we do have a lot more time. We have until 7, right?
We actually have until 7:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have plenty of time. I actually have a question for you, Simona, that I'm hoping would be helpful
Mhm.
for families here. How were your parents or your family able to help you regulate at home?
Well, my dad was a lot more calm and collected than my mom, which is kind of what helped me regulate. Like I remember when I was a really small child, um, my dad would just kind of take me to the bathroom and we would watch the sink water and then the bathtub water, and he would just explain how that worked whenever I felt bad. He'd just be like, "Hey, look, the water is falling." And I would just kind of start laughing because I thought it was funny. I was always very like interested in how my house worked. Um, so that was kind of my dad's strategy. As for my mother, she's a great person. It was more just like it was better for my dad to help me regulate than her, just because she's such an anxious individual and so am I, that we kind of fed off of each other's anxieties, and that just got a lot more complicated.
You-
Sorry, I'm muted. How did I build relationships with my neurotypical peers in middle school? Katarina. Okay, so in middle school, I built relationships with, it was kind of that first, like, some people are gonna like me, some people won't kind of situation. Because when I was younger in Nest, it was like we were all kind of friendly, and even if things happened, they were resolved within a fairly quick time frame. But in middle school, I built relationships with peers more so by like realizing that like okay, the first year I didn't tell anyone I was on the spectrum, and I just kind of tried to forget about that, which was very difficult for me. And then eventually this my teacher, he like kind of encouraged me to do a presentation like the one today on my disorder. Just kind of be like, "Hey guys, I have autism. This is what autism looks like." And um it was a lot easier once I'd done that. Like I remember at some point one of my at the time friends was kind of started naming a bunch of disorders they had. They were like, I have mood swings and I have this and I have that. And my friend stuck up for me and said, she has autism. I mean, we're all experiencing life in our own ways or something like that. And that was really mature for an eighth grader at the time. And it was really cool to just see how different people reacted to like that. And obviously, yes, it was difficult, but eventually I ended up making more friends once I was open about disclosure because it really filtered which people I was comfortable speaking to. What would I recommend from M. Thomas is the best way to encourage my high schoolers to make friends? Do you have any strategies? Well, my boyfriend is also autistic, and we actually go through this a lot because I'm very social and he's very much not. So it's like very I what I say to him is like I'd kind of speak to him about situations that have already happened. Like, for example, he thinks people like him less than they actually do. I'd say like I just kind of encourage him to go to make friends to talk to like-minded people. Like honestly, the worst thing that people can do is just like you have nothing to lose if you're talking to people, especially like with other boys. Like he has this friend, like he really wanted to be friends with him for a while, and I was like, "Hey, you should go talk to him." And then they ended up becoming pretty close. And I think that's really cool. And like I often used to be shy myself, but eventually I'd say just like it's about going to reach out to people who you think are like-minded, and rather than like reaching out to people who you think are like cool or popular, because I also like had negative experiences with those people. Like it's really not that worth it at all to have popularity in middle or high or college, like in different educational settings. Like also by the time you get to college, all of those people who peaked in high school just look a little bit less appealing to people, and they just kind of have their own little group. So I'd say just like think about like college, just tell him like out of the people at your school, like talk to him about interactions he's had, or she, your high schoolers, just tell him like talk to them about interactions they've had and be like, hey, like this person did this, and how would you like out of the people who you're friends with right now or who you know right now, who do you see yourself still being friends with even if you don't go to the same high school in 5 years? What helped me, Alexis, communicate and express myself better when I was younger? In general, kind of music or just having one really strong passion, I'd say is like very helpful, because as a musician, like that was kind of easier for me to channel emotions into something that wasn't always speaking, and eventually I would end up speaking. It was just easier to have another outlet or to journal or to just have like a processing self situation first before going out and impulsively communicating with others. Renee, it seems like I've found a way to balance setting my own limits with attempting challenges. Thinking of the sheep brain story, how did I decide when I'm going to do something that might be uncomfortable or challenging? Honestly, what I usually do is if it doesn't impact my personal safety or bring up any past traumas that I'm not comfortable with. Like, if it isn't like the sheep brain, it wasn't unsafe for me to do the sheep brain or dissect it. Like, I was in school, my teacher was there, she taught us how to do it. As long as I listened to that teacher in high school and did that, like, it was very, like, if I followed her instructions, the sheep brain worked out perfectly. And I was with a partner as well. But if it does impact my safety, like the abandoned building, I mean, recently there was a building in my area which was like an old spice factory, and there was some student who like was trapped in there for a long time. I don't really remember what happened to him, but I just after hearing that, I didn't want to go into an abandoned building with my friends. Um, I don't know, it's just like I'd say like think about your own safety first of all and then happiness. Like if it's something that you think you can benefit from as well. Like there was this movie I was watching with my family, and it just like I felt very uncomfortable watching it and I just didn't want to keep watching it. Um, and then I think that was the right call because it was also like something that was very emotional for me because of my past. But if it's not something that like, if it's just something that you're like, ooh, this is kind of gross, or ooh, this is new, I don't like that it's new, that's when I'd say you should go for it. Do I prefer to be referred to as autistic rather than I have autism? I'd say yeah, just because it's like, I mean, honestly, I don't even care that much, but the whole like person first push came primarily from neurotypical advocates, which I'd say just doesn't really equate to what we want. And then that's why I kind of want to counteract that. Not that I dislike neurotypical advocates, like it's just saying like it kind of feels like they're justifying to themselves that we're people rather than like explaining why we would want that. I mean, it's just nothing about us without us is a phrase that the movement of autism and autism acceptance and awareness often uses. Um, so it's just really like important to know yourself in like what you would want. Like if someone who's on the spectrum wants person first, I by all means will use that. But honestly, I think it's kind of the same thing, and that we should be focusing on how to increase acceptance in the community and in the outside world rather than like just kind of having this term of like autism acceptance, autism awareness, autistic, autism first, person first. It just doesn't really matter all that much. When did I find out about my diagnosis? Was I upset that my parents did not discuss it with me? Very much I was upset. I was about 8 years old, I want to say. Um, and I was very generally upset because I mean, I also didn't really discuss it with them immediately. Also, because the friend who told me was someone I admired very deeply, and who was like older and just had a very strong connection with me. But it was like I was pretty upset at my parents and like I just didn't really discuss it with them directly. Like my mom always brings up this one time when I should have, according to her, been happy because I was like watching the Christmas lights with my family and we were all just gathered around these like displays in Manhattan, and it was just really fascinating, and I was fascinated, but it was really upsetting to also just have like this situation that this new information about myself. It completely changed my outlook on life. Did I feel a divide between the Nest kids and the other kids? Did other kids ever make it feel like Nest kids were outsiders? I felt like yes, there was a very big divide, especially because back when I was in school, there was this gifted and talented program. And a lot of Nest kids were taking classes in it. So it was just like very much like, oh, these are the gifted kids, and these are the Nest kids, and these are the, like, it just felt very like label oriented rather than just like, okay, great, we're all kids. And the other kids kind of did act like, oh, because blah, blah, blah. And you guys, like, they didn't really know that much about what was going on. It was just like, why are you guys so weird? And I did eventually, like, one of my non-Nest friends from elementary school, we recently got back in touch and discussed, like, why things were so difficult for us back then. And she was just kind of going through a rough personal situation, and she said that she took it out on me because we were pretty close, but it was just like a very dramatic and chaotic, like 8-year-old friendship, right? Like, I want this, I want that, and a lot of stuff happened. Um, but it was just really like, eventually we talked about it now as like nearly adults, and it was a lot easier to communicate just because we'd both grown so much. Um, and yes, like other kids did kind of make us feel like outsiders sometimes, but not all of them and not always. It was just also like, it was a very diverse group of kids. So it was very difficult for us to all connect on the same level because even beyond Nest, it was like there were kids from so many different kinds of places, even though we were all from Brooklyn. And I don't mean just like countries or backgrounds, I just mean like in general, like we were all just from such different family lifestyles that it was really difficult. I'm gonna check the chat because I'm seeing that there are some people in the chat. Um, how did this Nest program help support me in any way as a high school student? I was not in Nest as a high schooler, but I was like going back to do a panel that was like smaller than this, which is part of why this is so nerve-wracking. This is just a lot larger in terms of like the scope of the people in the city. Like this was a much smaller, like there were multiple panelists and it was at 32. And I kind of started this with one of my teachers named Miss Lakata. She's really awesome. Um, and we did this like thing where it was like we would each come and speak about like our own experiences, and we had like preset questions, and then the family would ask questions. So it was basically kind of like this, just to hear about our experiences. Yay, Miss Licata. Oh my God, you know her. That's so awesome. If we have any other questions, I would love to answer them as well. I can also like speak about different experiences. I just honestly, I thought that the presentation was a little shorter and would go a little longer than it did. And I kind of like, I felt that I said most of what I had to say, but I love answering questions. And it's honestly, I'm getting to know you as well through what you have to ask, even though I don't even see your faces or know you at all. I'm really honored to be here, and it's really special that Nest invited me back to do this.
Simona, I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, are there any skills you feel like your parents have helped you in terms of regulation that you've been able to carry through?
Well, I guess it was mostly just thinking before I speak was very like important for my parents. And also like just having good manners in general, like not dropping that like sort of attitude that I had, like not necessarily putting on a persona or being fake, more so just like having my own personal attitude of like respect, treating others with respect, even regardless of how I was feeling. You can always take a minute if you're overstimulated or unregulated. Like I've done that before, and it's rarely ever been an issue, only one time that I can think of. But it's like you can always just like take a minute to yourself as long as you treat others with respect was sort of the kind of general consensus of my parents. And that really helped me. Oh, Q&A. What was the best part of Nest? Is there anything important to me that I felt I got from the program that I wouldn't have got in a general population classroom? Honestly, the best part of Nest was just like having so many like-minded individuals and being understood by so much by the teachers. Like I know that I did kind of speak of like a lot of struggles that I had. I know that I was being very negative, but overall it was a generally positive experience for me to be there. It was just really awesome to have such a personalized connection with my teachers that I don't think I would have gotten in a regular classroom. I mean, in high school, I never really connected with any teachers the way I did with Miss Licata. And I just have a lot of like familiar faces from Nest who really tried to understand me and who succeeded because they were like putting in so much effort. Like Nest teachers are really one of a kind. Ooh, another Q&A. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Simona, how do you feel about staying on till 7?
Yeah, of course. No, I could stay on until 7:30 even. I mean, I just didn't really realize. I thought we had until 7, and then I made my presentation what I thought was 45 minutes and ended up being 30, and I'm so sorry.
No, it's not a problem. I just want to make sure we have time for questions and then, we're
Yeah,
maximizing.
for sure. Ooh, two more questions. I hear a lot of difficult moments, and it seems to be related to overwhelming social situations. What would you, looking back, what would you say to your younger self and how to find more support to make it less difficult? I honestly feel like my biggest problem was the optimizing speech part of that whole presentation. Like, as well as saying no, it's just like I didn't really know how to ask for my needs without offending people or making it seem like I was too much or too little or something. Um, what I would say and how to find support less difficult is like I would tell little Simona, I would just be like, hey, you could honestly ask for whatever you need as long as you're maintaining the respect that your parents taught you. Everything is temporary. So in 2 weeks, you probably won't really mind as much of what has gone wrong for you in these past 2 weeks. And how to find more support, I would say, like, just kind of talk to people. Like, I really struggled to communicate what exactly I needed because I always wanted to have conversations with people, but then I just struggled to do so. Why did me and my family choose to go to a non-nest middle school? It was mostly just because like the academics at Nest did not really match my academic needs, even though the social needs were very much met. Like it was really awesome to have social support. It was more just that like the academics that I was receiving, like I'm more of a project-based learning kind of successful person. Like I succeed more when I get to do projects and show teachers how I work rather than take a test to do stuff. And it's like some people do succeed better with tests. And it just really depends on each person's personal learning style. But Nest was a really awesome experience, and I'm really glad that I was there. Two more questions. How do the other kids in the Nest program do? Did all of them do well, or did some kids, still struggle? I'm not really gonna like okay, I know my best friend was from there. She's doing amazingly. She's studying science. She went to Beacon. She had friends at Beacon and was in the theater program. She's a really a go-getter, but she's still very humble and she's just really awesome and I'm really happy for her. But I do know some people who haven't really had quite as um for transformative an experience as her and me just throughout like leaving and going off to college. But also I've just seen so many different nesters. Like I feel like I'm not as in touch with a lot of them, but like one of my friends like goes to Middlebury and studies film. This friend I told you about studies science. Another one of them is in a frat. Like it depends on each person and their own needs and their own success. And I would say that most of the people that I have seen from Nest and that I've experienced Nest with are a lot happier in college than we were in high school. That's all I know about, but I also just don't know all of these people as closely. Partially because it was a largely like male group, especially I was in like the very early stages of the development of the Nest program. Um, and I was just very like I was one of like two or three girls in my whole grade. So it was just a lot more difficult to connect with my peers if they all had this group of dudes and then I'm just there like, "Oh, hi. I like pink and Barbies."
Simona, would you say then that that's more, it's less related to the program, more related to the type of person and their needs, and basically like
Yeah.
how the school itself supports them, right? This is not a plug for the Nest program. I'm just saying, I think we have to take into consideration each individual school and each individual student.
For sure. I completely agree with that. Like, I think that for some, like, as I was saying, some people really do succeed with the tests. I did not, and that was why I left. But also, like, the SDI and, like, all of those supports were really, really useful for me. So I'm not going to say, like, oh, I had a bad experience. I'm just saying, like, some aspects of it were or weren't beneficial. I wanted to try something different. And it's also like just depends on the school. Like now I imagine that a lot more project-based learning is there. Just when I was younger, I had to go to 32. I mean, there's a school near me now that does Nest where I probably would have gone if I'd been a couple of years younger. But 32 just did things a very specific way. And I loved 32. I still have some lifelong friends from there. I love Miss Licata. I have some awesome teachers from there. It was more just like I wanted to try something new to see if it was a better fit for me. And yes, I do definitely think that it depends on each student and their needs. I mean, as I've said, like just my friends are all over the place right now. Like I have friends literally all over the country and one who I think left internationally to study who are from Nest and everyone's like really like just pursuing their own life. And the school definitely does have an impact on that, but the school can also only do so much because at the end of the day, you're your own person. How have my sensory processing challenges and or needs shifted or changed as I grew through and past my years in Nest? Well, back then, I had a lot more of like noise sensory issues than I do now. But the one thing that I still sort of struggle with is smell sensory issues. Um, it's a lot more difficult for me to like be in a room that doesn't smell the best. Like, and if I'm like stuck there or have to stay there for an extended period of time, that's very difficult. But hearing sensory challenges have very much changed, especially in as a musician. Like, I'm studying songwriting in college, and I've had to like be in a room with a loud band and a loud drummer and a loud guitarist, and just everything's loud, and that has kind of been a bit of an exposure therapy situation. So yeah, it's like some of them have changed and shifted. Like they've gotten more minimal, but they haven't gone away completely. If I was my parents, how would I have preferred to be told about my diagnosis? I would have just preferred for it to not be a huge deal because I feel like it was kind of made into a bigger thing than it was, partially because like part of the reason that I wasn't told earlier was that a lot of my friends weren't ready to know yet. And like my parents told me that they were about to tell me, but they wanted to like ensure that all of the grade was being notified together. Um, that the parents had like discussed this a lot, and I would have preferred for my diagnosis to just not like for it to just be like, hey, so you and your friends are a little different from these other friends because of this, and this is what your strengths are and this is what your weaknesses are. But I generally would have preferred, especially from my family, a more strength focused approach because I feel like autism is not necessarily a sole challenge, even though I've talked about a lot about challenges today. I mean, my memory is awesome thanks to my autism, I think. I have perfect pitch in music and just other little things that I think are really awesome about autism. And it's just like a really transformative experience for your life. But I wish that it had been more of a positive situation where I'd been told that way rather than like oh, this is what's going on here. And this kind of sucks, which is kind of what my friend told me, which I don't blame him at all. He was 10 years old and didn't know. But yeah. One more question in the chat. With test taking in mind, how is that different for me now as a college student? My current college is very like ahead of the game in that sense. I go to a SUNY school, I go to Purchase. But the music program is really stellar. I mean, I'm really grateful to be here. Um, and it's just like the test, I only have one class where I even have tests, and the tests are all about music theory. And that is just kind of like, okay, you got to do it. But the rest of the classes are actually very project based, which is something that I looked for in a college. Um, and it was like one of my finals, or actually no, I want to say at least three or four of my finals were literally just like make and record a song. And one of them focused more on like an audio engineering aspect and like using digital instruments, which was super cool. So it was like a lot more easy to like, okay, it was like more emphasis to do like, hey, you're gonna do this piano that doesn't exist. They all have to not exist in reality. They're from your computer. That was one focus. A different focus was more about like the structure of a song, like how to get your audience that are listeners more engaged in what they're all listening to. And that was really, really awesome. And I kind of experienced that a little bit like towards the end of my Nest experience. But by that point, I'd already made the decision to transfer. And it was like, I feel like it's just like, it's a real process kind of learning what does work for you as a learner. And it's really just like, you need to know you need to know yourself in order to pick an institution or a project or something. Like in middle and high school, when I had to do a lot of projects, they often end up being songs. Like I had this one song they made in sixth grade called Influenza, and then everyone, it just went like, ooh, influenza, bad disease, because I was a sixth grader. People do that. And then for when I was like in, like still when I was graduating, someone like in, like when I was being introduced, for the graduation, someone mentioned bad disease, and it's just like learning that stuff. And now that I know myself, and now that I know that I love making music and that that's what I want to do with my life, these tests in college, I've gotten like really good grades on them because I do know that music is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And because making a song is something that I'm really passionate about, that I put my heart into, that I really want my listeners to be engaged when I make a song. Last Q&A question. Any other tips for families? Other things I wish my parents did differently? Just in general, I'd say I wished that I was less like wait, I don't know actually. Like I have to think. I mean, it's I just don't often know. Like I'm also an only child, so it was a lot more difficult for my parents to understand how I would compare to other children because they've literally only seen me. But things that I wish my parents did differently, I guess more so, I mean, both my parents are really awesome people, and I'm really grateful to have such awesome parents. But I would say I just like wish that my mother was a little bit more sensitive to my needs and my diagnosis, and also that she understood more about the diagnosis itself because like sometimes like she just won't understand what happens because it's an autistic thing and what just happens because I'm a teenage girl. Like she'll be like, "Why are you sad?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. My boyfriend of almost a year dumped me 2 weeks ago." And this happened in school and it's difficult. And it was just like stuff like that would happen. My dad, I wish that he involved himself more in situations like this. Just that he was always very busy with like his work and stuff like that. But when he did involve himself, he did a really good job. He just didn't really have the confidence to involve himself. Sometimes he was like, ah, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you did great this other time, and this other time. Like you got this. I mean, you're an awesome dad. And like I guess well, my parents are just very opposite. My mother's too involved, my dad's not involved enough. But I'm really like spending time with both of them, and we have each have like little things that we do with each other.
I'm
Ronnie, you're muted. Oh,
I
there you
really
go.
thinking to myself. This is our evaluation link. Unless we have more questions, I'm going to drop it in the chat as well. This is what helps us plan for future family webinars. So please take the time. We really do value your feedback.
It was really nice speaking to all of you. Thank you all for coming. Oh, thank you, Nelly. Thank you, John. Thank you all so much. It was also really great to hear your questions because it was really awesome just like knowing what different people are curious about. I mean, I get curious about the neurotypical experience too. And it's just really awesome to like see our differences, I guess, as well, and our similarities because we're all just people. The world needs all kinds of minds, as Temple Grandin said. Aw, this is so sweet.
Okay, thank you, everybody. If you haven't done so yet, please fill out that evaluation. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Simona.
Thank
Um,
you.
yes, we love your expertise hearing that tonight. Thank you.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you all.
Have a good night, everybody.